Should you always follow your passions? Be drunk. Don't just follow your passions. Become so full of them that they actually alter your perception of the world. If you're a poet, you can't just walk out outside and say, trees. You can't walk around and say just anything. You have to recognize that everything means something. Everything connects to you and you connect to everything because you're part of everything. You're in this world. You're among this humanity. Everything is connected and you need to train yourself to see those connections, which, by the way, is probably true about anything, any kind of person that you want to become. Because how can you feel like you belong to a world if you feel disconnected from it, if you don't realize how intertwined you are in it? Man, that world inside of you is changing even faster than the world outside of here. It's a whirlwind of changes of emotions and thoughts and feelings and perceptions. And when you can recognize that, and when you can feel it, man, and you can apply it to the things that you're drunk with, whatever it is. Some things are better. If any of you have ever had a drunk relative, or if you're a drunk yourself already, hopefully you recognize that to be drunk with wine is not quite as good as to be drunk with virtue. But with something, man, find something, pour yourself into it. And of course, people are going to say, sometimes people are going to say, that's a stupid idea. That means you're probably onto something really important. Behind it. It's not, the purpose behind it is not just to indulge a little bit. People will drink wine, they'll drink some alcohol just to relax. But if you're setting out specifically to get drunk, you're setting out specifically to distract yourself. And yeah, it could be problems. It could be for you problems. But what's this guy's job? What does he do? I told you right there. He's a poet. He's a poet. And that means that as a poet, he has a job. His job is not just to sit down and write poetry. Am I distracting you?
No.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because you're distracting me. No worries. Your purpose is not, a poet's job is not just to sit down and write poetry. That's part of it. But there's always this question of underneath of it, like why? Do you think that the guy got rich by writing poetry? No, he did not. Very few people get rich writing poetry. There have only been a few in the history of all of poetry. And so if you're thinking about a job where you're going to get rich, and you're going over your head like, I don't know, chemical engineer, maybe, entrepreneur perhaps, poet, no, that's not going to be on the list, man. It's not going to be on the list. People typically become poets when one of two things is going on in their life. Either they're already very wealthy, they don't need the money, so they can take the time to write, or they have so little money and they're so broke, it just doesn't matter. It's like I might as well write poetry because I don't have any money anyway. And they have no hopes or prospects of getting money. And there are people who kind of sit in the middle, but man, when you sit in the middle of anything, you're not in and you're not out. You're just kind of like wasting time in whichever way you pick a direction, pick which way you're going to go. Like anything else in life, if you're going to do it, then do it. And if you're not going to do it, then don't. But then go find something else that you are going to put yourself into. In other words, if you're sitting here and you're thinking, man, I'm so over school, I don't want to be here, and you're just going to kind of stumble your way through it, I would ask you why you're going to just stumble your way through it to get the diploma. What's the diploma going to do? You know, I mean, I actually had a student who was explaining that he hates high school. He just wants to get through it so he can just go to college, so he can get a degree and so he can get a job. I'm like, really? So you're going to just absolutely hate what you're doing here so that you can pay tens of thousands of dollars to do the exact same thing the next 5 years of your life and accumulate a bunch of debt in it? I had some students who were like, no, I just don't care about it. I do want to go to college. I'm interested in that. So my advice is then drop out of high school and go to college. You don't need a high school diploma to go to college. My guess is that if that's your mindset, you're probably not going to Harvard anyway. You probably don't have a 4.5 anyway. So what can you do? You can drop out of high school, go to Southwestern. You can do that right now. You don't need to have a high school diploma to go to college. And then if you go to Southwestern, you apply yourself over there, or another community college, and apply yourself there. Well, then you can transfer to any university you want. You don't need to have a high school diploma to go to universities. You can go straight through. You could have dropped out when you were 16 and gone to community college and then worked your way up there. You could be 20 years old and you could be a college graduate, if that was your goal, if that's what you're pushing yourself towards. And if it's not what you're pushing yourself towards, then what is your goal? Oh, I want to be an entrepreneur. Well, then how in the hell is this class helping you do that? How in the hell is your I don't know, whatever you take 12th grade, your chemistry, whatever you take 12th grade, how is that helping you do that? And if it's not, then you're wasting your time. You've got like one foot or a few toes in, and you're kind of like looking over the future, but you can't get there because you're stapled to where you presently are. You've got your foot stapled in this high school thing, and you're just kind of looking forward, but you can't get there until finally your foot is free. Free your foot, then drop out, and then immediately start walking towards the thing that you want to do. You want to go into business? Then free your foot, pull your foot out of the staples, and go and walk into the business thing that you want to do. Because the more time you waste, and yes, it becomes a waste here. The more time that you waste here, the less time you're investing in your business thing. And hopefully, if you're going into business, you recognize that that's a really bad investment. You have a choice. You can either waste or you can invest. Hopefully, you're far enough along that you recognize it's best to invest, not to waste. So then get into it, whatever it is. If you want to be whatever, fill in the blank. There are some jobs that you do need to be here for. Sure, you do need your high school diploma no. Sorry, I'm at a loss. I was about to try to defend the high school diploma. I don't think I can. I don't think it's necessary. Unless you're going into a 4-year university after this year. Well, then yeah, you will need your high school diploma. If you have applied to universities, then yeah, you'll need this to get into there. So I suppose you can check that box. But we waste so much of our time. We spend so much of our time halfway in something and halfway out. Are you committed to that relationship, no matter what it is? Romantic relationship, friend relationship, family relationship? Because every second that you waste, every second that you spend stapled to what you presently are, or where you are, something that you're not really into, then you're wasting time because you could be finding something else that you really are passionate about, something that you really do care about. Should you always follow your passions? Be drunk. Don't just follow your passions. Become so full of them that they actually alter your perception of the world. If you're a poet, you can't just walk outside and say, trees. You can't walk around and say just anything. You have to recognize that everything means something. Everything connects to you, and you connect to everything because you're part of everything. You're in this world. You're among this humanity. Everything is connected, and you need to train yourself to see those connections, which, by the way, is probably true about anything, any kind of person that you want to become. Because how can you feel like you belong to a world if you feel disconnected from it, if you don't realize how intertwined you are in it? I'm sure you've heard that thing before, like, 7 degrees of separation, 6 degrees of separation, something like that. 8 billion people on the planet. You're no more than 6 degrees of separation from anybody. In other words, you have a friend, and that friend has a friend who knows somebody over in China, who knows somebody in Australia, and in some way, in some weird web, you're connected to everybody in the world, 8 billion people, and you're only separated by like 6 or 7 people. That's incredible. And as soon as you can start seeing these kinds of connections, you can start to feel more as though you belong to it, and it belongs to you. And then you don't feel so damn alienated and alone all the time. It's just a matter now it's just a process question. How do I connect to these people? How do I connect to this world around me? Why does a tree matter to me so much? And it might not. It didn't matter to Baudelaire. He was a decadent poet. Only one person asked me what a decadent poet was. That's not good. If I were to ask you guys, what is a decadent? You'd probably say, What's a decadent? Oh, what's that? Oh, hang on, let me respond to this message. Hang on. Can I use the bathroom? A decadent. To be decadent means to be like degenerate. To be like the downward spiral of society. That's what this guy wrote about. His contemporaries. You had people like Wordsworth. You had people like Coleridge. So you have Wordsworth who writes, "What we have loved, others too will love, and we will show them how. We'll teach them how the mind of man becomes 1,000 times more powerful than the earth on which he dwells." And we're like, oh, wow. And then what does Baudelaire write about? He writes about a prostitute who's taking a shit in the street in Paris. He writes about something so completely different from what everybody else is writing about. And it's not just stuff you sit there and go, haha, I took a dump. You read it and you're like, how does he write about it so well, though? That's the thing. If you're a poet, that means that you can write a poem about boredom without it being boring. You can write a poem about dinner plates and somehow make it interesting. Hell, if you're an interesting person, you can talk about almost any subject and make it interesting. That's why no matter what you're into, I know nothing about 3 subjects. Cooking, all right? I have a really bad nose. I can't smell much, which means I don't taste much, which means I eat like a 5-year-old, mostly buffalo wings and pizza. That's 90% of my diet. If you don't believe me, when you guys start working today, I'm gonna go eat some pizza at my desk. I don't know much about chemistry either. And I don't know anything about architecture. So cooking, chemistry, and architecture. 3 subjects I know absolutely nothing about. I guess in gardening too. We'll put gardening on there. And if you came to me, and by the way, I don't have any interest in gardening whatsoever. If you came to me and you're passionate about gardening, I want to hear about it. Not because I'm into gardening, but because I'm into passion. Is there something that moves you? Yes. If it moves you, there must be something to it. I must just be missing it. That's the poet's job. The poet's job is to go out, experience the world, and come back and talk about it in a way that you can say, wow, so somehow I'm connected to a tomato plant in some weird way. Not because they make it so, but because it's true. They show it to you in a way that you finally agree with it. So I'm connected to a prostitute taking a crap in the street in 19th century Paris? Uh-huh. Yeah, and if you don't believe that, just walk around downtown sometimes. Everything matters. Everything is connected. Everything is interesting. Everything is funny if you look at it the right way. It's only with this roughness of our eyes that we start to think that nothing matters. Everything is disjointed. And there are people, of course, who don't want you to see the connections between things. And I'm not thinking some grand conspiracy like there's people in a room somewhere twirling their mustaches and tapping their fingers and, called they or something, because it's always they, them, the ones. Oh, no, we have to stop them from it. No, we just don't stop and look around once in a while. Think about how often you go on autopilot. Think about how often, like if you're walking to school, how often do you look up and go, wow, that sign has changed. Ooh, look, there's new graffiti. Wow, they've never scrubbed this blood off the sidewalk. Everything changes. Everything is in motion. Nothing is the same, and no person steps into the same river twice. Everything is constantly changing. And it's only our assumptions that things are always as they have been, that they always will be as they presently are, that stops us from seeing that. And that's what stops us from realizing the incredible majesty of the world around you. That's why if we're bored, it's because of how we're choosing to see things. Oh, I'm just bored because of where I am. You're probably bored a lot, is my guess. People who find themselves bored are probably bored a lot. You have to have something from outside to stimulate you. But man, that world inside of you is changing even faster than the world outside of here. It's a whirlwind of changes of emotions and thoughts and feelings and perceptions. And when you can recognize that, and when you can feel it, man, and you can apply it to the things that you're drunk with, whatever it is. Some things are better. If any of you have ever had a drunk relative, or if you're a drunk yourself already, hopefully you recognize that to be drunk with wine is not quite as good as to be drunk with virtue. But with something, man, find something, pour yourself into it. And of course, people are going to say, sometimes people are going to say, that's a stupid idea. That means you're probably onto something really important. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Happy Thursday.